I didn't anticipate it being this way, but I woke up this morning and I was super excited to make content about the featherweight division. So I want to get right into this video that I have an idea for. We need to know who can compete with Volkanovski now. And I want to break this video down into segments. I made this little PowerPoint presentation for this. You know that Corey Anderson quote where he's talking about there's levels to this? It's kind of cheesy, but whenever they say it in their post-fight interviews. But I mean, it's pretty true, honestly. There are levels to this. So I want to break this down, right? We have the legends of this division. This is going to be Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, and Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria, Volk, and Max. In that order, probably I would rank them as far as like how good they are. But they're going to be a class above fighters like Arnold Allen, Diego Lopez, as we've proven last night, and Yair Rodriguez, either for a set of reasons that we've seen that their skill set would be diminished by the skill set of the fighters in like this GOAT class that we've established, or because they've already fought one of these GOATs and they've lost. But it really does get deeper because like we have this, and then we also have things like this also being true. This same class of fighters, Arnold Allen, Yair Rodriguez, and Diego Lopez, is better than another class of fighters like, you know, Dan Ige, Bryce Mitchell, or Lerone Murphy. And that's been proven either through matchups that they've already had or skill sets, you know. And like, that's not to say that any of these fighters are bad either, because all of these fighters are good. It's just who can compete with who. And that's the questions that I'm honestly been pondering in my head, because it gets even deeper, dude. Whenever you consider things like this class of fighters that we just talked about as well, who's like a tier below the tier that's below the GOAT class, is still outclassing another grouping of fighters like Sean Woodson, Muhammad Naimov, and Joe Anderson Brito. And there's still many more levels below these guys too. And it's crazy just to think about, what do we do now, honestly? Because Ilia Topuria leaving the division was something that I thought damned us for a point and was just going to make things a whole lot less interesting. But that was under the impression that I had that Diego Lopez was just going to come out and knock Volk out. That would have been literally the dark ages. The fact that that did not happen and that Volk dominated literally just makes me so happy, dude. I can't stop smiling over it. So what do we do now is the important question. And that's what everyone wants to know. Who else can compete at this level? Here, I'm blocking right now. Here, let me move back. Who else can compete at this level, bro? Who else can compete at this level? And I have 3 contenders on the left side of the screen. I think that these are our best shot of having like good title fights on our hands. And between all the contenders in the featherweight division that are active, the 3 that I think that are most deserving to get pushed towards the belt are going to be Youssef Zalal, maybe not first in the pecking order, Movsar Evloev, and Gene Silva. And I think that Gene Silva proved his mettle last night, and Movsar Evloev's track record against opponents is just honestly really good. He has very good wins over fighters like Diego Lopez, who challenged for the belt yesterday. And good wins is kind of subjective, but he has a very strong game plan and ability to win fights. He has very high fight IQ, and he can utilize this to win fights. So, I mean, breaking it down individually, I really do think that Youssef Zalal gets heated up. He had a fight recently against Calvin Kattar, and he was just on the back foot the whole time, and it was really boring. I think he might have even gotten tagged a couple of times in this fight, and imagine what Volkanovski would do as far as output win against a fighter who was just fighting on the back foot the whole time. The only hope that Diego Lopez had was that he was moving forward and that Volk's output was mostly on the retreat. But whenever Volk is able to move forward and get his game going, dude, he would oppress Youssef Zalal. And that's literally just the middle of the pack. We've already seen what happens whenever Ilia Topuria fights him. But these 2 guys behind Ilia Topuria, they have very great output. So I don't think that on the basis of that, a fighter like Youssef Zalal would be able to compete, because he'd spend more time utilizing footwork and movement as opposed to like scoring points while he's getting punched. Movsar Evloev, I think he might do well. Out of all the different contenders that I've established between the 3, Youssef Zalal, Movsar Evloev, and Gene Silva, I think that he probably has the best shot of making it a close fight with any 3 of these guys, to be honest, just because of his style. He's a nightmare matchup for pretty much anyone in the division, and nobody likes to talk about him because he is such a nightmare matchup. And there's not really much on him getting hurt in these fights, and I don't think that he's ever suffered a knockout loss or a TKO before. He's undefeated, as far as I'm understanding. So, it just sucks that he has no hype. Him growing out his hair, I thought that would maybe like get him some more fans, but no. He came out and he put on a boring fight after he had grown his hair out against Aljamain Sterling. But I mean, for whatever it's worth, that was high-level grappling, and he did win that fight handedly. And you watch the highlights of it, and you're just going to see Movsar Evloev dominating large portions of that fight against a very high-level grappler. And Aljamain Sterling has the grappling ability of fighters in the GOAT class that we're talking about right now. And Movsar Evloev out-grappled him, so he would do well on the floor against any of those fighters. So that's why I think that he may do well in a fight against Alexander Volkanovski for the belt, if it did come to that. But one thing that he has to do is vie for an opportunity over Gene Silva, who also may do well. Gene Silva may do well on the basis of his aggression. He is a very forward fighter with good output, but a lot of his offense is reactive. People do things and then he reacts to it, you know? Like Bryce Mitchell didn't want to touch his glove and that made him put it on him. I wonder how his approach towards this will be different whenever he's fighting for a belt, if he'll just come out and just maraud from the start. I think that he would be better off if he did that in a fight against Volkanovski, as opposed to waiting for it to get like really nasty and then turning it on. He should just come out switched on if he can help it, barking extra fuel 300 times before he makes his walk. But in my opinion, what I think that they should really do is make this as a fight. But in my opinion, what I think they should really do is make this as a fight. I'm not sure if it's going to interest a lot of people, but to me, I think it's a very good one, because Movsar Evloev's style is anti-fun. Movsar Evloev is a boring fighter. But the thing about Gene Silva is, if you're a boring fighter, he's going to force you to be an interesting one for as long as you're fighting him. Because you're either going to fight him or you're going to die, bro. And whenever you're fighting for your life, it's impossible to be boring. And I think that this is what's going to give us a true #1 contender for that belt. And it could happen in the meantime of Volk's recovery. It didn't look like he'd take too much damage, so he's probably going to want to stay active because that's his thing. But I would like to see this fight happen. I'm not sure how it fits a timeline, or if the UFC is going to want to risk Gene Silva losing before he makes it to the belt, so they might just give him the title shot immediately. But I don't know. I think this is probably what they ought to do, because Movsar Evloev shouldn't get snubbed, because he's been on a long fight win streak, and I think he deserves it. So let him get the chance to fight for a title eliminator over Lerone Murphy. That's what I say. In this fight, it would be difficult to say who'd win, just because Gene Silva was showing shades of being able to be wrestled by Bryce Mitchell, but ultimately he did choke Bryce Mitchell. So who's the better grappler in that fight, we kind of found out. And to be a better grappler than Bryce Mitchell with his accolades and ability, it's a pretty big deal. And I think that he would have an answer for Movsar Evloev on the floor. And on the feet, he would definitely outclass him in power and just physical ability. So, oh man, I'm going to pick Gene Silva, dude, to win this fight. Gene Silva can do it. I think he will make it to the title. And we've established that there are levels. I think that he clears all levels below the GOAT class. They should definitely push him towards that GOAT class to see if he can compete in there. Because if you're winning fights against Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, or Ilia Topuria, you're one of the greatest featherweights ever. So that it's an honor to be able to be in a position to fight them. Even though Diego Lopez lost, he tried and he failed, and we have to respect his effort because it was a good one. But he got outclassed, and that will happen if you are not prepared to fight against the greatest featherweights of all time. So that is going to be my prediction. Likely a Gene Silva win if they do go with this as the #1 contender matchup, but if you did make it to this point in the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I will be back with more content. We're taking a week off from the UFC stuff. Not me, but the organization. So stay tuned for more uploads. I will have them very soon for you fellas. Have a great day.